Speaking for the coaching staff and all the players.
I want all of you to know that we didn't make up the plaque in advance. It doesn't say what team, and I'm taking it back to Washington and put in Texas.
Wake your ass up
or take a damn nap.
And we're the three best friends that anybody could have.
It's time.
Sean, you were twerking. That's going to happen.
Murph, don't be a dick all your life.
It's one of the more fun podcasts I've ever done.
Hey, I tell you what, if you're not talking about sports in the man cave, I better not say you not a man.
That's it.
Moments away now from a renewal of a great rivalry, Texas-Arkansas. It's been especially great the last 10 years because the two coaches involved who are great friends, Frank Broyles of the Razorbacks of Arkansas and Darrell Royal of the University of Texas.
No, I've not heard of the shootout.
Hey, and that's okay. We're going to talk about the game that was the shootout in 1969, but more or less how big this week is. Texas and Arkansas playing a game on football. And who let the dogs out? It's Lance Gunn, baby. Oh, my God. We had some dogs in the
I see that. We got dogs in the background at the gun house. Sorry about that.
No, that adds to the value to this because we are purely an organic podcast, if you will. This is real life, Lance. We appreciate you joining us for episode 89, which seems like virtually impossible that we're approaching 100. And thank you for being a part of it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you letting me come on. Couldn't miss this. A little Southwest Conference reunion, if you will, a precursor to what is apparently to come. And I think that probably happens sooner rather than later. I don't know if they'll make the 2025 or not, right? It feels like it might happen next year.
I think we're going to get this done next year if we can just get all the powers that be, all the elements of the Big 12, their additions and the.
Well, they just added 4 members, didn't they? 20 minutes ago, didn't they?
It's invitations. I think it's good for the Big 12. I think it's good to stay alive. Before Lance Gunn, I'll tell you who he is if you don't know him, but if you're a Texas Longhorn fan, you know who Lance Gunn is all too well. But first of all, a big thanks to our sponsors, and you know one of them, Jim Saxton State Farm Insurance Agency, and Cosmic Coffee and Beer Garden. And Lance, if I would love to get you and your wife and your kids sometime. We'll go on the south side and visit Paulo Vasey's. They have regular coffee, boozy coffee, live music, food trucks, everything.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, Lance, before we get going, I want to show you. This is a little bit of a surprise. It's to those who are not too sure maybe who you are or what you were in Texas history. You are a member of DBU because of this.
Klingler goes up top, and it is intercepted by Gunn at the 5-yard line.
So Lance, that was one of the best and loudest nights at Memorial Stadium. Go through what that play was right there.
So first off, there's big debate whether that was the loudest night or there was a game we played against Missouri in 2008 that was pretty loud as well. I think both teams were ranked in the top 5. So you always hear those two games bounce back and forth as the loudest. So the backdrop behind that is they had beat us pretty bad the last 3 or 4 years, a couple of 60 spots, just really put it on us in both at home and in the Astrodome. So they were undefeated at that time, on probation, but undefeated at that time. I think we had lost one game to Colorado, who ended up winning the national championship that year. We had that game just slip out of our hands. So coming into that game, there was a lot of talk about them throwing another 60 spot on us, and really probably played as well as a team game as we played the whole time I was there, right? So a lot of energy in the crowd. picked off Klinger, I think 4 times that night. I got a couple myself. That was one of them. So it was good stuff all the way around. Just a lot of energy. Fans ended up storming the field, which rarely happens at Texas. But it had been a while since we'd won a conference championship and had been that competitive. So it was a big relief. You know, that was the Shock the Nation tour for those. We're all dating ourselves with that deal. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
That was a fun year because that was my senior season in high school. And I don't know if you guys realized it, especially in the Austin area. I can only speak. You guys infused us, even though a lot of us at Anderson, we don't win many games or didn't win, but you infused us. You inspired us as being in Austin and growing up. But
well, oddly enough, that year we put an end to Arkansas's run. They had won the conference in 88 and 89. And so we came back and won it in 90. And obviously the Aggies, I think, won the next 3. And then obviously we won the last one, if you will, right? So it was just kind of one of those deals. They had Quinn Grove, I know we're getting this a little bit, but they were the team to beat that year or going into that year in the Southwest Conference.
And that is the theme of this podcast. We're obviously Lance being the guest. So we're going to get a little bit into Arkansas in this segment 1, where we're going to talk a little bit about his story, background, and it's to lead up into segment 2, where we're going all in Texas, Arkansas, the rivalry. I think they're meeting for the 79th time tomorrow, being Saturday. And that's where I am. I'm in Fayetteville, Arkansas, actually in Springdale, suburb about 10, 15 minutes away from Razorback Stadium, on a porch. Looks like a resort. I just went knocking on doors. Hey, do you have a porch and a pool that's aesthetically pleasing? Can I borrow it? And a power source? And here we are.
Well, they've done it. Looks nice. And I don't know if you saw that billboard off of 183 where they're saying it's so expensive to live in Austin, you need to move to Northwest Arkansas. So you're just getting a head start on it, right?
I'm marketing to remove or encourage others. Don't buy real estate in Austin. NWA, baby, is what it be. Hey, PepsiCo is hiring in Northwest Arkansas.
Exactly.
That's your employer now.
That's awesome.
Man, and so a little bit about Lance. You know, he is one of the good guys, DBU, defensive back university member, a great guy, and had a great career at Texas, played in the NFL, and just now as a husband, almost said wife, I'm sorry, husband, and a father of children. You know, you have how many kids do you have? I forgot. It's 2.
I've got 2. My daughter Tegan is a sophomore at Texas State, and then my son Tynan is a senior at Vista Ridge High School, right?
And that's your ties, because both of them will have gone to Vista Ridge, correct?
Absolutely, yeah,
okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I remember you and Steve Leach had that Vista Ridge tie.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, like I said, last time we had lunch, it was the 3 of us. They were talking probably either just before or right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Right.
First half of last
no idea.
Feels like about 3 years ago, right? At least.
It feels almost like a decade.
Yeah. It's hard to believe that was just last year. That's crazy.
We've made progress. We have made progress, Lance. Tell us a little bit about you. We saw the video against, Houston. Has football always been that significant part of your life and made you into this successful corporate career that you have now?
So, I came from a basketball family, believe it or not. So my dad, his brothers, and even my cousins on my dad's side all played basketball. Several of them went to college, right? And I was kind of the outlier. I was the only one that grew up in Texas. The rest of them grew up in Indiana, so that kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah.
And really loved basketball. Even now, I just wasn't good enough to play in college. I mean, that's just flat out all there was to it, right? And I was, happened to have a liking of hitting people. I don't know how you say that.
Contact sport, Lance.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure, right? So I kind of like that. I don't know why, but I just kind of gravitated towards that and really kind of took off from there, right? It's funny you mentioned that we talk about contact sport. I look back at some of those games and videos you just showed a highlight, right? I think I might have been kicked out of, I don't know, half a dozen games or so, right? It's just a different deal then than it is now. I understand the rule change and everything like that, but some of my best plays probably would have gotten me removed from several games as we look at it now. So, but yeah, I just growing up in Texas, everybody played football, and so that was just kind of my deal. And then around about my junior year, I put on about 30 pounds and about 1.5 inches, 2 inches, and just kind of changed the whole dynamic, right? So, yeah, so it was good, right? And obviously I went to North Shore High School, which is a powerhouse now. We weren't near that when I was there, but we have certainly made up for it in the last few years. Have won 4 or 5 state titles over the last, let's call it 20 years or so, and are certainly looking for another one this year. So I consider myself the original Mustang, if you will, right? When I first got to UT, I don't think anybody knew where North Shore High School was. And now everyone in this state and across the country is full aware of what North Shore High School is, and certainly their football team. So good stuff all the way around.
Was Coach Amon your head coach?
He was not. A gentleman named Bill Farrington, who coached out in Kilgore. Kerrville was our coach. Amon came in the late 90s and obviously kind of set that deal on the map from that point. And then obviously coach has taken over from there. And, I think he's won 3 state titles since he's been there, right? And like I said, just missed out on another one last year. North Shore versus Duncanville a couple years ago is one of the best games in the state history, and certainly one of the most memorable plays in the history of the state. So goes without saying, pretty proud of that. I was in Jerry's World the night when that happened. So, and then obviously from there, had a chance to go to Texas, redshirted in '88, and then was fortunate enough to play. I played from '89 to '92, 4 years there, started all 45 games, and had a really good career. Was, I guess 3-time All-Southwest Conference first team, second team my freshman year, and then was All-American my senior year, team captain. So it was a really, really good career. Actually even got a degree out of it as well. So the 5 years could not have worked out any better for me. And also ended up meeting my wife in that as well. So my 5 years at UT were absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it's amazing. I get, for those of you maybe watching this for the first time or hearing Lance for the first time, and I know the moments are few and far between, but whenever I have an opportunity to see Lance in person, it's just there's a special type of energy that I don't know what you bring with you every day, but it's a special energy beginning with that smile. When you tell stories, man, it makes you, if you're having a bad day, that disappears immediately in your presence. So I
appreciate you saying that. You have the same effect as well. You're selling yourself short. And I know when we see each other, usually first both of us got a pretty big smile on our face. And it's almost as if we just stopped talking a couple of minutes ago, right? We pick up right where we left off. Even before this show started, we jumped right in. So it's always good to connect with you. So good stuff all the way around.
It is, my brother. And it's just something that I think we need a lot of. That's one of the premises of this podcast that we're, back in March, was to bring uplifting and positivity in a time that everybody needs it. And then right now, I mean, when you think of where we are now in this Texas football season, when you hear that Arkansas is on the schedule, back when you played, there were 3 huge games, and maybe 4 because Houston was really good. Back then, you had OU, Houston, Texas A&M, and Arkansas. How do you describe the rivalry with Arkansas? Because it's not really a rivalry anymore because they don't play regularly like they used to.
Well, first off, I know when we talked a year and a half ago, you have done exactly, your vision has really come to life. So hats off for that, right? It's rare that we're actually able to kind of put those things together. I know you've had a lot of help along the way, but congratulations for that.
Thank you, Lance.
From a rivalry standpoint, it used to be one of the biggest, right? Back in the day, it was certainly A&M, Arkansas, and OU, right? That was it, right? As a matter of fact, if you look back, historically speaking, years when we beat all 3 of those teams usually resulted in a national championship or something pretty close to it, right? So it would be rare, even as great as Texas has been, where you actually got victories against all three of those teams in one season, right? Because of that rivalry piece, right? So certainly I think it's good for us to re-engage with them now. As you have seen in a little bit of time you've been there, you show me some pictures, and I've talked to some friends, right? This is still a rivalry to them, right? I mean, don't get it twisted, right? It's still a rivalry to them. And I don't know that any program is going to benefit more from Texas coming to the SEC than the University of Arkansas, right? If you look at what they were in the 30 years before they left the Southwest Conference and they were matched up with Texas each and every year versus what they've been from a football standpoint in particular in the 30 years since, it is a drastic difference. The win-loss record, the conference titles, the national championships, this was, again, I think they're close to maybe coming back, but this was one of the premier programs in the country in the 60s and 70s and even into the 80s. Yeah. Versus, again, they have fallen on very hard times in the last 30 years. So I think they will trade on this rivalry as much as anybody, right? I think when the SEC voted, I think they would have voted twice had they been given the opportunity, right? This is going to be a huge deal for them, right? And I think it also helps the University of Texas out as well to rekindle that rivalry and all this. I mean, you showed highlights of the 69 game. We had a couple big games in 90, and the last one, even though we lost it, that was a pretty big game as well in 91, right? So it's been as big a rivalry as there's been in college football. That 69 game was the game of the century, at least at the time it was, right? So it shows you how big it was and how much impact it had on college football. Both those programs won national championships in the 60s. And again, I don't think Arkansas has won a conference title since they left the Southwest Conference, right? And that'll kind of tell you all you need to know about the impact of not playing Texas and what it's meant for their program.
100%. And for those you saw Roschon Johnson when he was asked, Roschon, what do you know about the shootout? The game of the century, the shootout of 1969, as you mentioned, number 1 versus number 2.
Right.
And back then, the national champion was crowned before the bowl game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Texas came back and won 15-14. Well, you don't expect there's a generational gap because Arkansas left before A&M claims to be the trendsetter. Arkansas left in 90 after 91.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that 69 game, it was set to happen earlier in the year, as it always is. And they moved it back to the end of the year because both teams started out and they kind of thought that game would be for the quote unquote national title, right? So they pushed it back to the end of the year, right? And it was a big deal. You saw President Nixon there, and it was a big deal for sure, right? It was 2 of the premier programs. And then, as you know, included a lot of high school football players from the state of Texas, right? I mean, that's similar to when we play Oklahoma. It's just a Texas high school football brawl, or all those games essentially are.
Lance, we're going to talk a lot more about. We're going to hear from the Longhorns in segment 2 and break down the game and have some fun with the history. But this part of segment 1 is fun because it allows you to really tell a story that a lot of people may not know about you. That's special. We call it the Jim Saxton State Farm Insurance Agency Man Cave story. And it could be anything. Like maybe you could have a story about your father, Sidney Gunn.
Absolutely. Well, first off, Jimmy was a year younger than me, so I have a lot of respect for him, and he's done extremely well with his business here. And so the Saxton family are legendary at Westlake, at the University of Texas, and in the Austin area. So if he's listening or even catches a recording of this, a lot of respect for you, Jimmy, and appreciate you hosting this deal. So from my perspective, I after leaving Texas, was drafted by the Bengals. Actually had a pretty good rookie year up until I got hurt in the middle of the season, right? And so that was in 93. And then 94 was actually cut by them, and then was with the Saints for a little bit, and then actually went and played in Europe in the summer of 96. That was for the Frankfurt Galaxy of all teams, right? So it was that NFL Europe or World League at the time is what it was called, right? And so when I came back from there, was trying to get back in the NFL and also potentially going to Canada. I was kind of had some things lined up and everything like that. And my wife and I were out, and we were kind of planning our wedding as well. And what ended up happening is my dad kind of pulled me to the side and said, hey, I've got some pretty serious medical issues. He laid a term on me. I didn't know what the hell he said. He was going into renal failure. I had no idea what that meant at the time, but I mean, basically his kidneys were failing, right? And so they had talked about potentially doing a kidney transplant and looking for matches, right, if you will. So in that window, right after talking to Trace, we decided, hey, let's see if that works out. And so we went through a series of tests and it come to find out that it was a perfect match, right? So with that, I was fortunate enough to be able to donate one of my kidneys to my dad. And we laughed about it afterwards because, I think he said he felt good almost immediately after it happened, right? And I was the one laid up in the hospital for the next 10 days while he was walking around saying, I hadn't felt this good in years. I was like, I bet you hadn't. But anyway, we laughed about that for a second. But that worked out great. He has since passed, but it did increase the value of his life, and it had an immediate impact on him. And obviously brought us closer together. It was a true blessing to help, if nothing else, improve the life of someone who helped give you life, for sure. So that created even more of a bond. My dad and I were close even before that, but made us even closer afterwards. Even to say my football career was over at that point in time. Right. It was probably over before that. But again, that kind of brought that all, together and kind of made sense and kind of tapped into God's planning and everything like that. So it worked out really, really well for our family.
That's one of the more impactful man cave stories we've heard because, I can imagine your father getting a 20-something-year-old new kidney. That blood's flowing. That blood pressure, babe, and it's he feels like a new man.
He's like, you got another one? You
can we trade one just for a week? Trade kidneys for a week.
Yeah.
Hey, that's I think more people need to hear that because I think we're in such a. And I'm not saying everybody. Mm-hmm. We're in such a society now where we're focused on ourselves. Not everybody.
Yeah.
And that is the ultimate sacrifice of giving the gift of not only life, but improved life to your dad. And I think as we get older, Lance, we start to realize we're not on here earth long, and nor are our parents.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, it was truly a blessing, right? It worked out just fine. And he was thankful. Like I said, it made us closer, if that was even possible, right? It just kind of a unique kind of bond we had there, right? It was pretty special.
That's amazing, my brother. And it's that adds value to that story right there. And I tell you what, before we transition, did your dad did he have any ill feelings toward the Arkansas Razorbacks in this football rivalry?
His mom, my mom, and he traveled to pretty much every game we had, and so they told the story of we were saying they couldn't get gas. Like there was no place. This would have been the 89, the first trip there. And you were right. We were Fayetteville in 89 and Little Rock in 91. Okay. Right? That's what it was. Yeah, the last time we played as conference foes, if you will, right? But in 89, and we actually ended up winning that game. True story, I actually ended up getting kicked out of that game.
Whoa.
Right? Guy threw an offensive line, came up a little late, I thought, and threw a forearm shiver, as they called them back in the day, at me. And I threw a right cross and caught the flag on the way out, right? So when you were on the sideline, so I think he just told the story about not being able to get fuel, right? So that's pretty funny. And then when you were on the sideline, you had to have your helmet on. Yeah. Because there would be these spit cups just coming out of nowhere, right? From all sides in that deal. So anyway, yeah, so we ended up obviously won the 89 game, lost in 91, which was a tough one to take, considering that was the last time we played as conference foes.
Yeah.
But no love lost for sure from a Texas-Arkansas standpoint on the Gunn family side, right? Had a chance to go there. You have a little more guts than I do. I want no part of going to Little Rock or Fayetteville at this time, right? That of all the SEC places, that will be the last one I go. I guarantee. I've been there, seen that. I want to see everybody else before I go back and do that one again.
Lance, I'm still looking. I put out an ad on Facebook, or I may have to put it somewhere on and ask for some bodyguards tomorrow. because I'm going all in burnt orange on game day here in Fayetteville.
That's going to be classic.
Oh my God! Send help.
Yeah.
I Venmo redemptions for cocktails at an Austin bar for someone to, or if you know somebody here in Fayetteville, send them immediately. Oh my God. Lance, we're going to take a quick break and pay tribute to our amazing people who support our podcast here. And we're going to talk a lot more about Arkansas and your memories and hear what the Longhorns have to say. That's coming up on segment 2 of episode 89 of Stories Inside the Man Cave. For all of your insurance needs, look no further than our primary sponsor, Jim Saxton State Farm Insurance Agency. The ATX OG has been insuring Austin for over 3 decades. And get this, Jim Saxton is a Longhorn legacy. He is the son of the late, great James Saxton, who was a Heisman finalist. Be sure to give him a call, or better yet, visit his website, saxtoninsurance.com, and tell him that the Stories Inside the Man Cave boys recommended you. Hey, welcome back. That I know that little piece we put together, it fires me up. I mean, it's just the rivalry. To you and I, we understand the value of the Razorbacks and Longhorns. But what I find hard to believe is Arkansas has won 4 of the last 6 meetings. Does that even resonate with you to believe that is true?
Yeah, no. Like I said, that one in 91 was really hard to take, right? I think they had 2 offensive touchdowns. I think it was 14-13, and really didn't do much outside of that. But we struggled to score as much that year ourselves. So, right, it is hard. But one of that Houston Bowl loss a few years back was really tough to take.
Oh.
That one still sits with a lot of Longhorn fans for sure. That was a rough night there in Houston for sure, right? So that was one of those where they had more people at the stadium than we did, to show you how big that is for them. I mean, we're not more than 3 hours from there. They're probably close to 6.
Yeah.
But they definitely had more folks in the stadium that night than we did, and showed up on the field a little bit better than we did as well.
You know, I think this is going to be quite an education for the current Longhorns, because it's a young team for the most part. And what fans maybe who are up here who have made the trip, I saw some young people and the teenagers and current Texas students gave them the hook 'em, and just had a lot of. I did ask, so what do y'all know about this rivalry? That they used to play. It's not used to play. It is. It's hostile. And before we go into your stories, I definitely want you to hear how the Longhorns. I guess they kind of have an idea. I know Steve Sarkisian. He has an idea because he's a college football. Just, I guess you could say, connoisseur. He and Derek Kerstetter. Here's what they had to say about playing Arkansas again.
Going to Arkansas, it's a pretty cool game. You know, to think this will be the 79th time these two schools have met, it's pretty special for that opportunity. You know, obviously old Southwest Conference foes.
I'm excited, man. It's going to be a fun time. I've heard it's a cool atmosphere to go to Arkansas and play, so I'm excited for this weekend. It's going to be a fun road trip. And
hey, Lance, how would you describe the atmosphere in Fayetteville? I know Little Rock's a little different. It's a bowl, old, smaller bowl stadium. Fayetteville, and if you ask all the old hats like us and older, is there words to describe it when you compare it to the Cotton Bowl and Kyle Field?
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, it's the biggest game of the year for them. And the rivalry has been on hiatus for 30 years. But when you talk about just folks in Arkansas and their perception of Texas in general, and in particular the University of Texas, right? And then you talk about the recruiting battles associated with this and being able to jumpstart this again, despite how they struggled for most of the game against Rice last week. I anticipate, as I'm sure Coach Sark and his staff and the whole team anticipates, they're going to get a really good effort from them this week. I dare say they may have been even holding some things, if you will, just for this game, right? You know, before the season starts and you're going through and you got maybe 4 to 6 weeks of practice and you're getting ready in most instances for your first opponent. I wouldn't be surprised if Arkansas had 2 or 3 periods dedicated to just Texas as they were getting ready to play Rice. So I rest assured they've been getting ready for this game for some time. And the head coach there didn't have a great season last year, rough start with the win last. You want to talk about endearing yourself to the Hog faithful? Get you a win against Texas this weekend, right? That'll buy you a little bit of time for sure to get the ship righted, no doubt, right? So I definitely think they're going to get Arkansas's best effort.
100%, regardless of how good they are, because rivalries, as you know, it boosts not only the adrenaline, you get your best and you get the max effort from everybody. Cotton Bowl is amazing. I know it's old. I know it's dirty. I know it's just, but people like you and I love it. Being on the field, I've never played in that game. You have. Kyle Field is different. But what is I heard Keith Moreland on Thursday night. I asked him if he was going. You know, he played both baseball and football.
Yeah.
And he says, no, I went one time. That's enough for me to Fayetteville. Last time I was there, I was on the sideline, and someone threw a whiskey bottle and hit me in the head. You talked about the spit cups.
Yeah.
We're talking about spit cups. What is the trash talk from the fans and the players the same as it is with those other 2 rivalries?
You certainly got the sense in the 2 times we went there that there was a little more animosity with the fans than anything else. And there is a strong dislike for Texas, and in particular, the University of Texas, right? I mean, that can't be overstated in that sense, right? And so what's driven that, I'm sure through the years, they've felt like they've gotten a short end of the stick here or there, right? Probably what drove them to leave the conference many, many years ago as well, right? But in that window, for sure, that their fans, even I had friends passing through there a couple of summers ago. Again, no insight into this game was a year plus off. Right. No insight into the Horns coming to the SEC. And they were still talking on the radio about how much they hated Texas. Like, really? Like, you hadn't played Texas on a regular basis in 30 years. You got a whole lot of other things to worry about besides the University of Texas. But still, that meant a whole lot to them and was at the top of their radar from that perspective. So it just goes to show there is something there along the way that kind of generated that they haven't lost even after 30 years. Texas being Texas, I would suspect that there will be several other SEC teams that will join that parade over the next few years. I suspect that we are going to get our fair share of hate from nearly everybody that welcomed us into the league a couple weeks ago.
I think it's going to be every week's going to be a rivalry, if you will.
We will run to no worse than the 3rd most hated team on everybody's list, and we will be number 1 or 2 on most teams, right? Most hated lists, right? Just I don't know if it's our team, our fans, or some combination of the 2. But we seem to bring that dislike out in everyone on a regular basis.
And I think that's a good situation. Yeah. You don't want to be everybody's buddy.
Exactly.
You don't want that.
If you hadn't known it when the news broke, You would have thought this was whole Texas idea, and we literally held a gun to OU's head and forced them to come. Like, really? How does this work? It takes two to tango in this deal, right?
Yeah.
Even Oklahoma State somehow blamed us for taking Oklahoma. Like we had duped them into some kind of grand scheme or something like that. I'm like, really? I don't get it.
It is hilarious, but Texas got the raw end of that deal. Texas was receiving so much blame.
Yeah.
For the residual blame, if you will,
exactly.
For a month straight.
Exactly.
Like 3 additional weeks. Can we let it slide?
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. So I would suspect that all other SEC teams are going to join. I mean, can you imagine going to Georgia or Florida, right? They will be ready for the Longhorns when they get there for sure.
All right, Lance. In no way are you signing a written document, a legal document, but it's prediction time. Your thoughts going into this game, and that being tomorrow night. And I have to admit something, that tomorrow will be an early start for me. The group that I'm here with, who live here, I'm the only Longhorn fan who's going to be a Longhorn fan. The game's not till 6 p.m., right?
Yeah.
We're leaving here at 11:30 a.m.
Ooh, get it in. That's strong right there.
I'm watching my back. That's why I need support. So I may send out some erroneous. No, they're not erroneous. There'll be tweets. Help. I need support.
That's gonna be all right there. That's you getting it all in. You're gonna take in the full impact of being in Arkansas.
Man, I'm gonna have some. I'm gonna put my thick skin suit on, and I'm gonna deliver that smile. And I may talk a little back, and I want to pull my best Lance Gunn of chirping Mike on the sideline. But Lance Gunn of 1990.
Right. I mean, so predictions. Before we get into that, you cannot overstate how well they looked last week.
Yes.
New quarterback, new coaching staff, right? New scheme, systems, terminology, everything like that. Was probably as impressed with the defense as anything. Really strong on third down. Great at the point of attack, right? Just really very physical. I think it picked up a big recruit or two this week. I think they saw that as well, right? I mean, so it's starting to lay those tracks down. So I was thoroughly impressed with how we played. I think we're going to score at 2 or 3 touchdowns on kickoffs and our punt returns this year, just from what I saw, right? So I just can't speak of how for a first game looked at against what I thought and still think is a very good team. They were well coached. They had good size, had good athletes. They won 10 games last year. I believe they won 9 games the year before that and had a lot of those guys coming back. So that was a good football team that they beat last Saturday. And so I was very impressed with how they looked for sure. And I think they'll get a better effort from Arkansas. Jeez. But I got a 45-24 or somewhere thereabouts if you're going to have to hold me to a score, right? I think it's close a little bit early, right? But I think, by the back half of the second quarter, we start to pull away, right? And really pour it on when you get into the third and fourth quarters, right?
You know what? If I'm holding you accountable, you got to hold me accountable and call me out on my prediction if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I was preaching to a lot of people who thought Texas was going to roll Louisiana. Nobody took Louisiana serious on the outside. I'm with you. I saw the 10-11 win season. I saw the quarterback on every national watch list.
Sure.
Those guys played sound defense last year.
Yeah.
And they were missing a couple of people, but at Texas, I thought mimic their coach, businesslike. They weren't uptight. They executed. And for having a first-time starter at quarterback and what Casey did in the third and fourth quarters, and that O-line, I know they need to improve. But that D-line is full and deep of beasts.
Yeah.
In the linebacker play.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I thought even the secondary is the youth they have defended pretty well, even though there were some chunk yardage given up, but that was a great team.
Yeah.
I think Arkansas owns the first quarter.
Yeah.
Because of the energy.
Sure.
I mean, they're going to ride that wave. It's just a matter of this is one of those, I guess you could say, adverse situations you need to face and overcome.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I'll say Texas will win this one 31-13.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you bring up a great point there. I think this last week's game and this week's game and the nuances they bring, it's great for a young team, a young program to go through that, because this would be a tough spot at night. And we all know, you talked about a little bit, people have that extra 4, 5, 6 hours they have for those 5, 6, 7 o'clock games versus those noon games, right? To get motivated or whatever other energy drinks that they're taking to kind of get a little more amped up for the game, right? There's going to be a big wave, a big crowd, a big level of enthusiasm, right? That it'll be the first time for many of these kids to see that. And so I think that's a good window for them to look at, right? If you're going to play well against Iowa State later this year, you got a Red River rivalry that's inside a few weeks now, right? That you need to win, right? So I think, and if you're trying to make it to a Big 12 championship game, games like this against good quality teams is going to be very, very important, right? But I think Mr. Robinson is going to go out. I think he's at the top of a lot of people's Heisman watch list. Had a great week last week. I think SI had him Player of the Week as well as many other publications, right? And he's a special guy for sure, and showed that. And I suspect that he will show that again this week as well.
Before we move on to the segment that we end the show on, who was your favorite Texas defensive back? Because just being biased, Lance Gunn, the DB.
Yeah, so I was a big Jerry Gray fan for sure, right? Jed, I mean, he was kind of the originator, if you will, right? And then a guy I played with, it's probably partial to Stanley Richard, right? He was just, played two positions, was really, really good, struggled a little bit early on. Senior year was absolutely phenomenal, right? Just a great all-around guy, too. Hats off to him. He went back and got his degree a year and a half ago, which, again, that was something he'd wanted. So has really come full circle in that deal. So I'm obviously a big Jerry Gray and Stanley Richard guy, but Ray Clay is fantastic, right? I mean, so I'm not trying to short anybody. And another guy that I bet people talk about, I love John Hagee, right?
Yeah.
I mean, John Hagee's got a level of nasty that
he talked and he walked it and talked it.
Yeah, I love John Hagee, right? So anyway, but those two for sure were at the top of my list.
And the DB that really you love watching play currently for the Texas Longhorns as of last week.
I don't know these guys as well, so if you give me another week or two to check that out, I will give them the benefit or credit, I should say. I love the tackling. I love the angles to the football. And I didn't see a lot of guys getting turned loose in the secondary, right? So I think we had 4 or 5 sacks, and I thought at least 2 of those were coverage sacks where there just wasn't anybody to throw it to or anybody readily available to throw it to. So I think there's certainly some guys in there in the waiting that are primed to have big careers. But I'll owe you that follow-up on that one to kind of see. I'd like to get another look at those guys and see.
Yeah, we definitely will. And this is where we like to end the show, but we like to end on some positivity.
Yeah.
Hey, man, tell me something good.
Did you recognize that voice at all?
Who was that?
That's DJ Harge, Mike Harge's son.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He's a talented young guy, and even has voice talent. So I told Harge I'll represent DJ anytime for voice.
Right.
So Lance Gunn, legendary DBU member, great man, intelligent guy, has a great introspective point of view on multiple topics, a cerebral guy on multiple levels. Tell me something good, either in your life or maybe what's going on that you think you see good in society. It could be football, anything.
So from a football perspective, and we talked about this a little, I think the move to the SEC is absolutely fantastic. I think it's good for Texas. It's good for other programs in the SEC. It's good for college football. There's no doubt about that. So I'm pretty excited about that piece, right? on a personal note, right, I'm pretty excited. I don't know if I told you, we sold our house.
Oh, wow.
And we're actually moving to Burnett. So we're building a house out there.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. So we're probably a year away from that being finished. So you will have amongst the first invites when we get that thing finished up. But super excited to be moving out there and joining the good folks out in Burnett, Texas. So from a football and personal standpoint, those are two things that are pretty good.
That is good. Congratulations to you and your lovely wife and your entire family. Goes to show you. I mean, I'll be honest. Burnett, Liberty Hill, going toward Marble Falls, beautiful area.
Yeah.
Congrats on that. For those watching or listening across the country, that is a beautiful piece of heaven in the Texas Hill Country, and it really describes how the growth of the Austin metro area. People are trying to go farther and farther out.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you something good. You remember Jason?
Yeah.
You remember Jason Reeves, the late Jason?
Yeah.
It's hard, but the one bright spot here that his son Jalen. I know I talk a lot about him on this show, and I talk a lot about him because I try to keep the legacy going.
Yeah.
Not only am I proud of him and his sister Kyra, who plays soccer at University of Missouri, Jalen has already in 3 games as the quarterback of Pflugerville has scored a dozen touchdowns passing and running as Pflugerville's quarterback. One of the most mature things I've ever seen. And I think this is good. It is good to me. I was going to decline doing play-by-play that I normally do for Anderson High School on a streaming site at the stadium to go be with Jalen on senior night, which was this week. Jalen said, I don't want anybody walking me out on senior night. I just want to stand beside pictures of my mom and dad. On the field.
That's all right.
That's all right. And that's something good. And it's not to depress anybody. That's a strong, mature young man right there who gets it and is embracing all the feelings.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, that's fantastic. That's a great story. Right. I think they're off to a good start there at Pflugerville. I think they're 3-0 or 2-0. Aren't they off to a pretty good start there, right?
3-0.
Yeah.
Look out for those Panthers.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
Hey, it's going to be hard for me. Not this week, but the following week, the district opener, Pflugerville and Anderson play, both blue and gold, district opener.
Wow.
So I'll go down there and love on Jalen before the game. But then I get up in that booth, I'm going to be it's all business.
Yeah.
Hey, Lance, man, I appreciate it. I wish you were here with me in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Always love your stories, brother. And you inspire a lot of people. I don't think you realize it. And we'll have to do this again. And I hope you get to meet the rest of the Man Cave boys too.
Absolutely, sir. Appreciate the invite. We will talk to you soon. Be safe.
Absolutely. And for the Man Cave boys, all of them who couldn't be with us today, and the Texas Longhorn legend, that is the Lance Gunn. And for all of you watching and listening across the country and across the great state of Texas, I can't find the end. We out.
You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up.